بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين نحمده ونشكره على هدايته ونصلي ونسلم على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله الطاهرين المعصومين وصحبه المنتجبين اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. Sisters and brothers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. During these difficult times, I think it's opportune for us to start the session by reciting Surah Al-Fatiha for the soul of those who have lost their lives, particularly in Gaza as well as in Lebanon, southern Lebanon. So let's start by reciting Surah Al-Fatiha. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. The surah which is under the discussion today is Surah Humazah. The name of Humazah has been taken from the first verse within the chapter. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ويل لكل همزة لمزة الذي جمع مالا وعدده يحسب أن ماله أخلده كلا لينبذن في الحطمة وما أدراك ما الحطمة نار الله الموقدة التي تطلع على الأفئدة إنها عليهم مؤصدة في عمد ممددة. Devastation to every person who makes evil gesture at others, and to every slanderer who amassed wealth and kept counting it. It is as if his wealth had rendered him immortal. By no means he shall be flung into the fire that crushes. And what do you think you understand that? A fire kindled by Allah, which will rise up to the hearts. They will be enshrouded in it, fastened to columns very high. Before I start with the usual commentary about the verse and the disagreement between commentators on whether this is Makki, Madani, etc., I want to digress a bit to something different. First of all, the chapter starts, this particular Waylun likulli humazatin lumaza, a stern warning to those who have two negative traits, which is backbiting, slandering, and fault searching of others. But then Quran, this chapter mentions as well the underlying reasons for this, which is the ghurur and the arrogance that comes with wealth and power. We have seen this concept being presented in other part of the Quran. إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَيَطْغَى أَنْ رَآهُ اسْتَغْنَى. When you become istighna means when there is no need. When you become rich and you think that there is no need anymore, you become arrogant and you begin to be disobey. Tughyan means to go out of the way. So before we go into that discussion, I want to move to something else. In the past, I have mentioned briefly on various occasions that the social structure of the Jahili period, particularly in Mecca, because of its unique position, was what is in the political economy defined as mercantile society. Mercantile society is a society that primarily the wealth rests on the accumulation through trade and commerce. Those of you who remember, at least in one chapter in the Holy Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alludes to this fact. لإلاف قريش إلافهم رحلة الشتاء والصيف. This trade and commerce that they did by going back and forth, north towards Sham, back south towards Yemen during various seasons. Quran talks about this. Part of the mercantile society is that the economic structure is people or group or small group of people try to control this wealth, and they translate this wealth of the power, economic power, into some other domains. In the case of the Jahili, it was translated into both political as well as theological domain, because these individuals that we have the trio that in the past we have discussed, Abu Lahab, Abu Jahl, and Abu Sufyan. These three individuals that accumulated most of the wealth, and they were the wealthiest, they were the most corrupt as well. And in previous chapters we talked about whether it was Tabbat yada Abi Lahabin wa tab, or Qul ya ayyuhal kafirun la a'budu ma ta'budun. Your way of life is totally different than ours. Or indirectly in the other surahs that we have covered regarding Abu Sufyan, alluding to his way of life. These three accumulated most of the wealth, and they translated this wealth into the economic power into political power and theological power, where they dictated to the Jahili mindset, to the Jahili social structure, how to believe in gods and what kind of gods that they should believe in, and the multiplicity of gods that they needed, because Kaaba then was being used by different tribes to bring and put their godheads on Kaaba, and that became a source of income for these powerful elite that existed. They had to come and visit their gods on a regular basis, so as they came to Mecca, they had to pay some kind of a tariff or tax, or at least use the economic structure that existed. We have something similar in the Western political economy as well. The mercantile concept in the capitalist society goes back to around 14th century, 15th century, but particularly 16th and 17th century, where the social structure in the West, there was a huge attempt by the Western powers or countries to accumulate as much wealth, which was those days silver and gold, as possible. In the same manner that Quran says absolute economic wealth leads to corruption, that mercantile society that came to exist in the West became the root for the infamous colonization and land grab and wealth grab around the world. Every country, whether it was France, Germany, Portugal, Spain. We all know about the Spanish Inquisition, and after that coming to Christopher Columbus, coming to the South America, and the kind of genocide that took place. After that, the migration of the white Caucasians from Europe coming to this land, searching for land grab, wealth, etc., and justifying it. There is a debate in the West as to what was the reason. There are some scholars like Max Weber, that sociologist, that says it was the Protestant movement or the Protestant faith, particularly under the Calvinist branch, that became the impetus for this land grab, because under the new Protestant movement, you became sure of your salvation by the amount of wealth and success that you have, what we call the theology of affluence. This is, the more wealth you have, that's a sign that God is happy with you. So the notion, and this became part of the what we call mercantile ethical philosophy in the West. So every country moved out to grab as much land, as much wealth as possible, because the more success they had, the more convinced they became that God is happy with them. In the past few years, we have seen how this economic power has been allowed to influence the political power, particularly, I believe, with the case in 2010, the famous case of Citizen United against Federal Election Commission, where the Supreme Court allowed fictitious companies that they have huge amount of wealth to contribute as much as they can to influence electoral process, which now the economic power came to dictate the political power. That was the same kind of things that existed in mercantile society, because inherently every mercantile society has this unique characteristics in common. The community, the social structure is primarily tries to make money as much as possible using trade and commerce, and those who succeed ultimately move the power, economic power that they have, towards controlling the direction of the social structure, how it's going to be. And if you look at the history of Islam, these were the most ardent enemy of the Holy Prophet and Islam. Because when Islam came with a clear plan for establishing a social structure on earth that will be just and seeks justice and support justice, لِيَقُومَ النَّاسُ بِالْقِسْطِ, as the verse says, and ethically based, then this central aim of Islam clashed with the mercantile structure and the desire to control society, because they couldn't tolerate and that something that Bani Hashim, that they considered it to be some kind of, yes, it had some unique background about relationship that went back to Prophet Ismail, but in the conflict of wealth, they were nowhere to be seen. They were not extremely rich. They were well off to look after their own affair, but they couldn't compete with, say, Abu Sufyan, Abu Jahl, or Abu Lahab. And Abu Lahab was one of this Bani Hashim, uncle of the Holy Prophet. Tabbat yada Abi Lahabin wa tab. Immediately after, why such a condemnation? Ma aghna anhu maluhu wa ma kasab. Everything that he spends his life trying to accumulate the wealth that he has is not going to be useful to him in the future. So this notion of strong condemnation based on the way economic power was being used to create a society which is dysfunctional, economic disequilibrium. When Islam came with a clear message, it found that social structure when it came to issue of justice and so on, in total disarray. So it starts with a severe denunciation of the economic disequilibrium in a number of chapters and verses. Surah Abu Lahab, قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ أَرَأَيْتَ الَّذِي يُكَذِّبُ بِالدِّينِ وَيْلٌ لِكُلِّ هُمَزَةٍ لُمَزَةٍ أَلْهَاكُمُ التَّكَاثُرُ, and the name and the list goes on. So Islam persistently criticized the social structure that were imposed on the society, which was at the heart of this wealth, this order, wealth that was at the heart of that social structure. On the one hand, we had unashamedly boastful consumption of wealth and accumulation of wealth, and on the other hand was grinding poverty, the society being divided into have and the have-nots, which opened the door in the previous chapters that we talked about, the social exploitation of the orphans, the poor, women, slaves, and etc., etc. Alhaakum at-takathur, competition in accumulating wealth, has kept you from preoccupied until you visit your grave. Constantly, nothing else mattered but this wealth. Abu Sufyan, Abu Jahl in particular, one of his reasons for opposing the Holy Prophet was this particular. Bani Hashim spend money on, say, Hujjaj. We spend money on Hujjaj. They have a nice project and we spend money on nice projects. And we were in parity with them. Now, they have some kind of authority and we have some kind of authority. Now suddenly somebody within Bani Hashim comes and claims that some kind of a divine relationship between him and that person. Now we cannot compete. This is why the existence of such a claim clashes and confronts the basic power structure that these mercantile rich they have developed in society. And it's strange, after the demise of the Holy Prophet, within a short period, I think 10 years, by the time Omar's period was over, we had similar kind of mercantile structure, wealthy, now call it bourgeoisie, Islam, development in charge of the Muslim society. Abdul Rahman ibn Auf, Talha, Zubair, and others. These were the major wealth holders, and the power that they wielded with it. That's why they couldn't accept the justice that Ali was intending to impose on the social structure. Go and read if you have time. Unfortunately, as somebody once said, we within our community, we suffer from what we call cognitive misery, where we are misers when it comes to understanding and reading and developing ideas. Beyond the certain scope of our work, we don't spend time to extend the knowledge and learn. Cognitive misery means we learn deliberately, enable our brain not to think. Critical thinking is removed, and to settle for shortcuts. That's it. The idea that we should spend some time reading as much as possible to see what is going on around, both in any field, it's not. So if you have time, please go and read, at least see the genocide that was committed by the mercantile rich in European context when they began to go to Africa, Far East, South America, and how they destroyed by labeling others as savages and less than humans and animals. They allowed or permitted themselves to commit all kinds of action against human individual. The case of Belgium. If you read the king, just in Congo, over 10 million people were wiped out. For what? For gold and silver. The people who came to the United States, the same thing. Christopher Columbus goes to Central America and ultimately South America. There is a priest that worked with him, and he sent a report back to King of Spain, astonished by the degree of sophistication and civilization that existed in the life of people, natives in that area. And yet, when Christopher Columbus went back, he simply portrayed them as savages and took all their gold and killed a huge number of them. We saw it in Native Americans on this land as well. So read, because one way or the other we're still suffering that consequence, the labeling and everything else that we have in our. When you have a Zionist defense minister standing up and says we are dealing with less than animals, where the idea comes from. It's the same old ideas regurgitated, and now we are using it in the context of Palestinians. We see in the case of Germany and other places, the massacres and atrocities that they committed in around Southern Africa, in colonies that they organized. The British, the French. Read the French colonization in Africa, in Northern Africa, particularly in Algeria, and see what kind of things they have committed. The pictures, boasting about these violation of these pictures. Bodies decapitated, body parts are taken out, etc., etc. And these are so-called civilized. So the notion that we have a state, a Zionist state, that to be the the most democratic state in the region, yet commits this kind of atrocities, is nothing new. It goes back to the old. Also read Max Weber's Protestant Ethics and the Foundation of the Western Capitalism, if you get a chance. I'm not here supporting his thesis, but at least to a degree what he says, that the justification for they needed a religious justification, and that religious justification came from when Calvinist or Calvin himself says that for you to be close to God, look at your own material wealth. One American general, during the time that they were in Somalia, there is a comment from him that said, I told the leader of this people that my God is better than his God. Why? Because we have wealth, we have power. So God is happy with us, but is not happy with you. You see that mindset, the collective mindset that existed in the past, drifts down and comes to dictate. So this surah is literally, although the theme of absolute wealth and corruption that comes from it, as I said, we have seen it in various other surahs that we have dealt with, indirectly alluded to or directly specified. قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ simply states that your way of life is different from my way of life, and there is nothing in common, and I don't believe in it, and I stand away from your way of life. Abi Lahab, Tabbat Yada is wealth, and how this absolute wealth has been translated into being indifferent to the plight of the poor, the needy, and etc., etc. And by the way, you don't have to be extremely rich, a Rockefeller, to have that immunity from social responsibility. On various levels, we have people that become indifferent to the plight of the poor, with all this even small amount of wealth that they have, because subhanallah, when shaitan comes and engulfs their heart and prevents it from submitting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. أَرَأَيْتَ الَّذِي يُكَذَّبُ بِالدِّينِ, immediately after the social responsibilities, the people that do not believe in the hereafter and accountability, what do? They become miser. They become tight-fisted. They don't share their responsibility, or they don't discharge their responsibility of social responsibility. وَيْلٌ لِكُلِّ هُمَزَةٍ لُمَزَةٍ is this chapter that we are going to deal with. The beginning of the chapter identifies two characteristics: backbiting and using gestures, visual gestures, or verbal gestures, or even hand gestures, to try to demean those whom these rich, powerful individuals are in disagreement with. So, in essence, it's a way of character assassination. If they are not happy with it, with the way they behave, or if their pattern of behavior is different from yours and you are not happy with it, then you start some kind of a act that becomes demeaning and assassinating the character. There is a verse in Surah Tawbah: الذين يلمزون المتطوعين من المؤمنين في الصدقات والذين لا يجدون إلا جهدهم فيسخرون منهم سخر الله منهم ولهم عذاب أليم. Even those who are, this is Surah Tawbah, verse 79. Even those that are either wealthy enough, but they are philanthropists, that they give for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Or وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَجِدُونَ إِلَّا جُهْدَهُم, they don't have much, but yet still they give. What do? These absolute power holders? فَيَسْخَرُونَ مِنْهُمْ. Sukhriya means to take a mickey, or to be disrespectful, or to character assassinate. By what? يَلْمَزُونَ الْمُتَّوَّعَ. Lams, an indirect way of either backbiting or indirectly expressing one's discontent for the pattern of behavior. سَخِرَ اللَّهُ مِنْهُمْ وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will scoff at them, and there should be a torment for them waiting for their behavior. So this is وَيْلٌ لِكُلِّ هُمَزَةٍ لُمَزَةٍ is not the verse itself and the principle that it portrays is not new. وَلَا تَلْمِزُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ وَلَا تَنَابَزُوا بِالْأَلْقَابِ. This is, I believe, Surah Hujurat, that says that between yourself, don't try to search for fault and backbite and slander, because you try to demean somebody else, or patronize somebody else. And there is another verse: وَلَا تُطِعْ كُلَّ حَلَّافٍ مَهِينٍ حَمَّازٍ مَشَّاءٍ بِنَمِيمٍ. These are people, pay no heed to any ignominious oathmonger that constantly swears by God, by everything, who makes evil gestures and who sows seeds of dissension, forbidder of good, transgressors and usurpers of right, cruel, and moreover these people will be punished by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the concept is repeated in the Holy Quran, the concept of forbidding backbiting and slander. أَيُحِبُّ أَحَدَكُمْ أَنْ يَأْكُلَ لَحْمَ أَخِيهِ مَيْتًا. for those who are backbiting and slanderers. Do you like to bite or chew on the flesh of your brothers? So there are various signs indicated in the Holy Quran that this kind of character or traits have been condemned completely. Now, immediately after, as I said right at the beginning, two negative characteristics that repeatedly in Quran condemned, immediately comes with the reason for such a condemnation. The reason is the absolute wealth and the power that people have, that they give themselves the right to be slanderous and backbiters to others and demean others' character. Alladhi, immediately after this, Alladhi jama'a malan wa addada. So, wailun likulli humazatin lumazah alladhi jama'a malan wa addada. As a root for this unique trait that has been condemned repeatedly in the Holy Quran is the absolute wealth and the economic power that gives this false impression that we are protected now, which is يَحْسَبُ أَنَّ مَالَهُ أَخْلَدَهُ. They think that this extreme wealth is going to protect them and make them some kind of have long longevity and immortal. Then goes away and explains what would be the condition, what would be the consequence of these people ultimately on the Day of Judgment. Remember, again, this ties in with the theme that we have discussed in the past, Surah Al-Asr that comes before this surah. That in that surah, Surah Al-Asr, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala portrays the characteristics of those who their future is secured on the Day of Judgment. وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. These four characteristics are needed to secure the ultimate end. This surah that comes in takes the opposite point of view. What would be the main characteristic for those who have literally sold their life and now will have the consequences? الذي يحسب أن ماله أخلده كلا. It's not going to happen. By no means he shall be flung into that which crushes. كلا لينبذن في الحطمة. تحطيم means to crush. So these persons are going to be thrown into fire that crushes. وما أدراك ما الحطمة. You don't know what kind of fire that crushes. I mean, fire burns, yes, but to actually crush, نار الله الموقدة. This is the fire that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has lit and kindled by Allah, and has a unique characteristics. These people during their life had no heart. Because they had no heart, they really saw no need to be mindful of the poor and the needy and the destitute, the orphans and everything else that is around them. And it was some of the narratives that we have about, or stories about the life of the poor and the needy at that time was unbelievably cruel. Ammar ibn Yasir, his father and his mother Sumayya are tied to a hot rock and tortured for simply accepting the faith, the new faith, that by these people, Abu Sufyan, Abu Lahab and Abu Jahl was considered an outlaw. They shouldn't. Economic power translated into political power, and political power gave themselves the right to dictate to society what they should believe and what they shouldn't. They saw Muhammad as a threat. And this is why they went to Abu Talib and they said, can you talk to your nephew? If he wants wealth, they couldn't imagine that this is something else. If he wants wealth, we will, between us, can come up with the amount of wealth that will make him the most wealthiest individual. If he wants women, we can give him as many beautiful women as we have. If we have power and political authority, we will give him. Don't disturb the status quo that we have. And the response came from the Holy Prophet, if they give me the sun on the right, and my right hand, and the moon, I'm not going to move away. This is a totally different concept, because they could see it in nothing but money. We see it in Pharaoh. When he condemns Moses, the answer is, look, he doesn't have anything. There is no wealth. I have all the Jannah, or the Basatin, or the rivers and everything else under my command. And this guy comes and he says, I'm a prophet from from God, and doesn't have anything. Even some of the political leaders, or the Quraysh leaders, were criticizing the Holy Prophet why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't give him wealth. He didn't come with a huge amount of wealth to show us that he has gold, silver, etc., etc. So this kind of notion that the truth is associated with wealth, and somehow this economic power that they are looking for, is constantly, we have it in various verses in the Holy Quran. Then كلا لينبذن في الحطمة وما أدراك ما الحطمة. You really don't know what this is. نار الله الموقدة التي تطلع على الأفئدة. The fire kindled by Allah, which will rise to the heart. See, this fire starts from the outside until it consumes everything. This kind of fire goes straight to the heart, because that seat that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in a number of ahadith, we say that it's the heart of a believer that contains me and nothing else. That heart had become so hardened that had to be burned and crushed, and it's straight. Now we have total internal combustion, the concept that it starts heat developing from within, that goes from outside, not from outside to go from within. That's something that one has to understand. إِنَّهَا عَلَيْهِمْ مُؤْصَدَةٌ. They shall be enshrouded in it. The fire takes around, but goes straight for the heart. فِي عَمَدٍ مُمَدَّدَةٍ. And there are columns that they fasten to various columns. This notion of fastening to the column, we have seen it in other verses in the Holy Quran. خُذُوهُ فَغُلُّوهُ ثُمَّ الْجَحِيمَ صَلُّوهُ. Chain him and then take him towards punishment. ثُمَّ فِي سِلْسِلَةٍ ذَرْعُهَا سَبْعُونَ ذِرَاعًا فَاسْلُكُوهُ. Seize him and chain him with an iron collar, and cast him into hell, and then fasten him with a chain 70 cubits long. Indeed, he did not believe in Allah Most High, nor did he urge others to feed the poor. This is again the social responsibility. This is the concept, the theme that we have talked about in the past. Non-belief in the day of judgment, and the fact that we are going to be accountable. Absence of ma'ad within the cosmology of belief ultimately leads to forgetfulness about our social responsibility. Let me stop here and answer any questions.